you're filling a space that was not being filled, and it's like you're doing it well, and it just goes to show that like there's a good, fun, engaging, interesting, entertaining way to do anything if you care about it and you like, and you're good at it, which you guys are. But yeah, no, thanks for the kind words. It's been quite a journey. Looking forward to continuing it. But yeah, make sure, here's my plug. Give these guys a nice 5-star rating and review if you're listening to this. That would be my ask.
Yeah, listen to John. Thanks. This is Hot Hand Theory. This is a podcast where we talk about the NBA and break things down from an analytical perspective. I'm your co-host XJ. He is my brilliant co-host Geoff. And today we have with us a true legend in the Knicks content creation space. Do not shake your head at me, sir. A true legend. If you listen to Hot Hand Theory, Geoff was saying this right before we started recording. You obviously know who this person is. He is the dean of Knicks Film School, Jonathan Macri. J-Mac, thank you so much for taking time out of your insane schedule to come on Hot Hand Theory. It's genuinely an honor. I want to ask how you're doing, but first I want to ask you this question. This is a huge question I've had for you for like forever.
Oh my God.
And I want to start with it, which is if you had to estimate how many hours you spend on a microphone on a monthly basis, so that's including, like the post-game streams, the recorded podcasts, guest spots like this one, exclusive content for, the KFS patrons, watch-alongs, all of that stuff. How much time do you think we're talking on a monthly basis?
Well, first of all, thank you for the undeserved kind words. That's a great question. I'll do some quick math, and I will say, what do they play, about 13, 14 games in a month, right? On average? On average,
yeah.
All right, so I've gotten better about actually taking some rest days. I've turned into Kawhi Leonard in my old age here. So I'm probably on 11, 12 post games a month. So figure average time of those 25. Let's go with, oh my God, I don't know, 40
hours,
probably, right? That's give or take 5 or 10.
Yeah, that's absurd. That's completely mind blowing to me. I specifically didn't include the stuff that you do on your newsletters. Obviously, any engagement on Twitter. I was just thinking about it because I feel like I'm swamped and overwhelmed, and I'm like, and we're getting, Geoff and I are talking to John about coming on the pod, and I'm just like, how does he have time to even spend an hour with us? So it's incredible.
No, but that's the other thing is I used to do guest spots for anybody who would ask, and Andrew said when things really got nuts, maybe a year or two ago, whatever it was, Andrew was like, dude, it's okay to say no sometimes. And I hate saying no because I always remember the people when Knicks Film School pod was nothing, and I asked people to come on who were way too good to come on the show, and they would always say yes. I guess the reason I am a little bit more judicious with my time now is I know all those people that I asked to come on did not have full-time jobs in addition to their full-time job doing whatever they did in sports media or content creation or whatever, and then I also try to give a lot of time to my family too. So, but yeah, I mean, between that and just total laptop hours, I would say there's probably another, I don't know, 50, 60 in front of the laptop, working on the newsletter and stuff. So
that's crazy.
I mean, it's a labor of love though. I'm the luckiest guy in the world that I get to do it because that means people give a shit about what I have to say, which I don't. That's great.
We know they certainly do, based on what I've seen as far as engagement and all the things how huge Knicks Film School has grown, and I'm super excited to be part of it. But
you are part of it
right now. Yeah, I know. I'm talking about it another, and I'm in my Hot Hand Theory hat right now, John. My KFS hat is on Casual Fridays. Geoff, to bring you into this, how are you doing? How is everything going? Are you excited to talk with John about some Knicks stuff?
I'm super excited. This is a huge deal for me. We got to host it was called Math Class, I think, on KFS a few weeks ago. Yeah. That was awesome. Yep. That was a huge honor to me. I always tell, I've been on Knicks Spaces. I've talked to other people. I actually got a direct message from a Knicks fan a few days ago, And it was someone who loves the Knicks, loves talking about the Knicks, is always like in my comments. And he was like, do you just like respond to direct messages of anyone who messages you? And I was like, well, I was an account with 10 followers and I direct messaged John like 2.5 years ago. And I was like, I think I was bitching about like Tibbs playing Frank over Elfrid Payton, which even at the time I didn't realize was probably the other way around, playing Elfrid over Frank, which at the time I had no idea was probably a sore spot for John, but John like took the time to be like, gave me his time, and I was like, okay, well, I'm trying this new thing. What do you recommend? And he was like, dude, just keep putting out good content. People will come. Like, and he was like, if you have any questions, like I could go back and find the original DMs, but I feel an obligation to pay his kindness forward. So I think it's really cool that he's come. Like, this is a huge honor for me.
I will say sometimes it takes me like a month, but I always respond to people who DM me directly. I probably shouldn't say that out loud. But I always respond to direct DMs, which are like open. I don't even know how to close them. I don't know. Can I close them? I don't know. Not that I would ever do that, with the exception of like around like trade season and free agency time, when like people will be like, are the Knicks getting so-and-so, or like what, when are we going to trade for like just stuff like that? I'm not going down that road. But if it's anything related, if it's like, attempting to engage in some sort of conversation other than just like, tell me if we're getting this player. Not that I fucking know anything. Sorry, I shouldn't curse on the spot.
You can curse on this podcast.
Yeah, you can curse.
I'll try not to. I always do try to engage. But anyway, enough about me. Let's talk about the Knicks.
Yeah. I will say, John, I think the more I learn about you and the more I watch your post games, the more I watch you interact with Andrew. Me and Andrew share the same like psychotic memory for sports. Like, me and Andrew are very similar in that regard. But regarding everything else, I feel like me and you are to XJ and Andrew. Like, all the stuff you talk about with the technology side. If you had heard the conversation we were having before you hopped on about how XJ does the screenshot thumbnail, I have no idea how he does it. I'm clueless with that. And he's like explaining it to me, and he's like, how meticulous it is. And I'm just like, whoa, that's not me.
I barely know what a thumbnail is, so just don't ask me to define it. I'll say that.
Well, of the three of us, as the person who knows what a thumbnail is, I am going to push us into Knicks talk. It's enough tears, enough sappy odes to John. We're going to put John on the spot right now. That's what we're going to do with some big Knicks questions. Here on Hot Hand Theory, we generally talk a lot about variance, regression to the mean, all of these statistical concepts. What we really care about are sustainable trends and observations or outputs that we expect to see over a large sample size. So, those sustainable long-term expectations we would consider real, right? And things that we expect to change either in positive or negative direction, we consider not real. Pretty simple. So with that in mind, we like to play this game with our guests that we currently call Real or Not Real. I mean, it's not very creative. We considered calling it like Hot or Cold or something like that, but that it doesn't work. But anyway, John, when we first knew you were going to join us, it was like, okay, this is perfect. The Knicks are going to have played like 35 games. We're going to have a really solid sample size. We'll have a good sense of what's real and not real. And then the Knicks got OG Anunoby. And I'm not saying we could throw everything out the window from the pre-OG era, but things are certainly different. So, we're going to really need your help on making some predictions using a small sample size. For the game, Geoff and I have prepared a few trends that we've noticed. Geoff, actually, do you want to get started? Do you want to go first with the first one that we want to talk to John about?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. So something that interests me a lot about the current Knicks right now is we're really starting off with a banger here, but I've been really intrigued by the Deuce McBride minutes.
Okay.
Duce is, I think he's currently playing around like 12 to 15 minutes off the bench. And a hot topic of his minutes has been, well, he's doing a lot of things well, but he's really highlighting the Knicks' need for another initiator. They need to go out and get another initiator. Malcolm Brogdon's been tossed around. DeJounte Murray's been tossed around. I'm such a macro thinker, and I can't help but look at the minutes as I kind of like just how they're winning their minutes. I know they're not the same as when Jaylen Brunson's on the court, but when you put Deuce McBride next to Quentin Grimes, Josh Hart, and OG Anunoby, you have arguably the best defensive foursome in the entire NBA. And so on one hand, you can look at those minutes and say, is there enough offensive creation long term? Is this a sustainable solution? On the other, you can look at it and say, this defense is so good, we should really let it play out. So my question to you, John, and to you, XJ, is, are the Deuce McBride minutes going to sustain, or do we expect the Knicks to seek an outside solution?
Do you want me to go first? My short answer is that let me take a step back. I was gonna just like start off the bat with my initial gut reaction was, the obvious answer is that at some point they will look for an outside solution. And then I have to think about the contract they gave him and the fact that, like, and I don't want to beat a dead horse because this has been oft discussed over recent days, but like, I don't think you could give a guy that kind. It's not this a break the bank contract, but I don't think you're going to give a guy that contract at this point, when there's like no real competition, and like, what is he really going to do that's going to like blow up his market, between now and the end of the year, unless you have some modicum of faith that he's going to be able to continue to be on the floor for this team, which is trying to win every game. That said, like, Duce, I kind of, it's probably not the last time I will say this on the show, I kind of side with Benji on Duce, which is that he is more of a small wing than a point guard. Now, does it matter? I don't know. Not necessarily. I guess it depends on who else you have out there. I mean, that's the other part of it, is like the group that you mentioned. Are we sure that's going to be the group that he's going to be playing with? Because you mentioned him with the three backup, with Grimes and Hart, who are the backup wings. But then OG, which I was about to look up like how many minutes that foursome has played together. But I feel like maybe it'll be that. Maybe it'll be Randle in the spot. I feel like that's a problem. It's been 4 games, so we're still learning about like what the groupings are. And like the games have been so wildly out of whack in terms of like who's produced during what minutes. So it's like Duce in the past 4 games has played 45 minutes. They're like, they have a 108 offensive rating during that time, but like it's 45 minutes. So who, like, I don't want to draw too many conclusions. I guess my simple answer is it would be more comforting from like a traditional 2023 basketball perspective if he was like the archetype of a point guard, because like everybody has the same shit that they run. Every team, most every team has the same stuff. It's like, pick and roll, drive, kick, whatever. And he doesn't really do that. But he's also an interesting piece. Like I love but there's also other variables. Like I don't want to drone on and on, but like I love his connection with Hardenstein. Like that's a big plus. That's a big value add for me when you have Duce on the floor. But he's currently not matched up with Hardenstein because Hardenstein's a starter, and it's like, so anyway. Actually, what are your thoughts?
No, I mean, I think those are really helpful thoughts. For me, so I did my homework and I listened to Cap or No Cap, this morning, and excellent by Jeremy, obviously, as always. And I agree with you. I think Duce is a kind of a small wing, not really like an on-ball guard at this point. At this stage, he can't really get into the paint like, even other guys that they have coming off. Not really that they have coming off. They don't have anybody who get into the paint besides Jaylen Brunson and Julius Randle. So
basically,
I mean, I like the Malcolm Brogdon idea from Cap or No Cap, and I think that's kind of where I've settled out. Now, for me, the question really is there a price at which they won't go to get Malcolm Brogdon? And I think that there clearly is a price. Like, they're not going to pay whatever it takes. If Orlando outbids them, they just get outbid, and I think they'd be okay with that. But then what are the plan B options? I do not like the DeJounte Murray option personally. I've never been on board for DeJounte Murray for a lot of the reasons that you all talk about. If people want to hear that, they can go to KFS and listen to Cap or No Cap. But I am not on board for DeJounte Murray, and to me, those are probably the 2 most viable options. Otherwise, why are you bringing someone in? So I can just see if the Brogdon thing doesn't work out, and this is what we have. I think you have to figure out how to make it work. And how do you make it work? To me, it's like you just put Randle out there with Duce, or you put Brunson out there with Duce. He has to have a creator with him, and you play him like a 2, like a small wing, and you utilize his shooting, his defense. And I think if you have like certain units out there with Deuce McBride, you're talking about a really elite defensive unit. You're talking about a defensive unit that could hold teams to like 100 points per 100 possessions, something completely insane, like 1990 style, like you're not going to score style defense. So I feel like there are ways you can make it work. They aren't the ways that we probably want to see, and I think that that's the issue, because I don't think that it's going to feel good when we're going, 5 minutes without scoring a basket, but also the other team is also not scoring. It's just going to be tough to watch. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Jay, I want to jump in real quick because I brought it up, I looked it up. These are comical. So there's the two different versions of the backup unit. One with Anunoby at the 4, the other with Randle at the 4. When it's the Randle with Achua, 81 points per 100 scored. When it's Anunoby with Achua, and again McBride, Hart, and Grimes, the other 3. This is so funny. This is why sample sizes are this small, are so ridiculous. It's 130 points per 100 scored. When it's with Hardenstein and Anunoby, 88.9 scored. When it's Hardenstein and Randle, 122.2. So like I just threw those 4 out there to make, and they're all between 5 and 8 minutes, or 4 of those items. So it's like we're so early. I don't even know how to make heads or tails of like any of this stuff. But like, well, I think what you said is kind of dead on.
Yeah, and to expand on XJ's point just a little before we move on to our next topic, I do think that the idea of being able to win different ways has a heavy correlation to success in the playoffs. Like this idea that the Knicks are trying to check all the same boxes for 48 minutes. I know this is a different subject, but I think that they should Coach Jeffrey here. I think that they should embrace trying to win in different ways over the totality of the regular season, because I think you always get hit in the mouth in the playoffs. I think that's just an inevitability. I think teams prepare for the best version of your team. And I think it's good to have a different way to win. So like, I mean, what are we talking about right now? The Knicks starting lineup right now is looking like one of the best lineups in the entire NBA. It's hard to see that lineup getting hit in the mouth. But if it does, if maybe Brunson's defense gets a little exposed in the playoffs, or Randle's a little lackadaisical, or we're going to get to him in a bit, but Hardenstein isn't the supernova we're seeing right now, it's good to be like, okay, now we have these guys who can come in and maybe they can't score like Brunson and Randle can, but they're going to slow the other team down and they're going to hit the other team back. And all of a sudden they're changing the paradigm for the other team. So while it won't look the same as with Brunson and Randle on the court, I do think there is some merit to living with the lows of the Deuce McBride's offense at the moment and just seeing what he can give over the next 20 games before you jump to a trade.
Yeah, well, and to be clear, the deadline is I believe it's 19. No, is it 19 games away? No, it's 19
exactly
games.
1 month away.
It's 19 games into the All-Star break. I always get these two things confused. So the deadline is like 15 or 16 games away. Again, just going to Brogdon, like Portland's written it out this long. Like I would be absolutely shocked if they traded Brogdon before we got to like deadline day or like the day before or whatever. So like Deuce is going to get time, and that's good. The thing that I think is interesting to me is, again, the backup center. Like I don't think Achua is long for this team. I think they're going to move Achua for, I don't know who it's going to be, but I think someone, or maybe it's not even Achua. Maybe they will figure out a way to get another 5 on this team. I fully believe that. I would be actually, frankly, shocked if they did. And I think Tibbs kind of tipped his hand already when he didn't feel comfortable putting Precious into a game against the Washington Wizards.
Yeah, that's crazy.
John, did you and Jeremy discuss Clarkson and Olynyk?
No, we didn't. No, Olynyk has come up, but Jeremy, because he did a little cap or no cap on possible backup 5s at some point, I think in his opinion, he just thinks Olynyk is so far away from like the sort of center that they typically look for. Like, so, well, in any case, so like it's hard for me. It's hard to have this conversation without knowing like, okay, who's the center that they get, and then just like I love that you brought up the playoffs, because to me, like, what do we know? We know there's never going to be a minute, I mean, barring injury, where both Jaylen Brunson and Julius Randle will be off the floor at the same time in the playoffs. That is not ever going to happen. I would be shocked.
We know that, John.
I think we know that.
He did it last year.
He did.
The most important stretch of last season was that 3-minute stretch in Game 6.
I completely agree with you. And it was McBride, Barrett, Hart. Who else was
Obi, Hartenstein. Obi and Hartenstein.
Yeah.
And Hartenstein.
That's right. And I think he probably banked on RJ being able to carry a little more load, and it didn't go so well. I feel comfortable saying at this point that, look, I could be wrong. But you're right to bring that up. In any case, let's assume that that's the case, that one of them will be on the floor. So Brunson's off. Obviously, here Randle will be on. Let's figure a better center, and then with figure Grimes and I guess Hart. Like I would have faith in that group probably for a 3-4 minute stretch. But it's because that's really what these games are decided on. They're decided on 3-4 minute stretches. But anyway, we could move on to the next topic. I could talk about all these topics for like an hour, and we probably shouldn't do that.
We could just go one topic for the entire episode.
Let's talk about Deuce McBride for an hour.
It would make us stand out. We would be unique in that.
There you go. There is a guy that I would talk about for the entire episode, and Geoff alluded to him, and John, you alluded to him. Isaiah Hartenstein. Gotta ask you about this guy, Hardenstein. Mensa and I have been out in front of the Isaiah Hartenstein bandwagon, and you'll love this though. There doesn't seem to be a Hartenstein hive, but at this rate, one is coming, and I have
there should be one
in front of me. That's what I'm saying. I mean, there should be one at this, but if there's hives for some other guys, I won't say. There should be a Hartenstein hive. I mean, at this rate, it's got to be coming. In my estimation, he just outplayed the MVP of the league in Joel Embiid. He's essentially broken defensive EPM. He's currently a plus 4.6, which I will say I looked into this a little bit. The only guys who have had a greater impact according to that metric since 2016, Rudy Gobert, Draymond Green. Two of the most impactful defensive players of all time. They're the only two. He currently has it's crazy. He has a 2.3 steal percentage and a 4.2% block percentage. The only centers who have hit both of those marks this year are Xavier Tillman in very few minutes. And ironically, I mean, I'll let you guys guess, who do you think the other guy is, the other center who's hit both of those marks? 2.3% steal percentage, 4.2% block percentage.
So I know the answer, and me and XJ haven't talked about it, so I'm gonna let John. I'm just gonna let John guess.
Is it Mitch?
It is Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell Robinson. So
I know because I was tracking his steal numbers for a while too.
Yeah. I mean, he's doing a Mitchell Robinson impression, and he's doing a little better at it. I gotta be honest. He's still around top 5 in offensive rebounding percentage in the NBA. One of the better passing centers in the league, and we know there's more you can do on that end. He's 25 years old, 6th season in the NBA. John, is this the Hardenstein breakout? Is this real? And if so, as a free agent this season, what are the Knicks going to do here?
Well, so let me work backwards. I'm just looking up some of the on-off numbers. Again, assists aren't everything, and I don't know how much you guys delve into specific stats and their value or their lack of value. I don't know enough to say assists are a waste of a statistic. I don't think they're a waste of a statistic, but I also think
I wouldn't say it's a waste.
No, it's not a waste, but it's also I don't know if it's the be all end all. I think teams can do good things that indicate good process on offense without necessarily having a huge assist percentage. In any case, so with Hardenstein on the floor this year, 58.2 assist percentage, with Mitch on the floor, 56.7. So you got that, and then effective field goal percentage with Hardenstein on the floor, 55.4, and then Mitch 53.3. There's other reasons why we might see that variant, and those two numbers are correlated because you hit more shots, you're getting more assists. So but for me, the Hardenstein part will always be the offensive part first before the defense. And I love defensive EPM. I think it has a lot of value as an indicator. I remember after we got eliminated last year and watching the rest of the postseason and trying to draw some conclusions. I always try to do this. It's always fruitless, but I always try to like watch the rest of the playoffs and be like, what do we need? Oh, I know. We should get a center that does everything. That's a great idea. But there's only one of those, and he's not going anywhere anytime soon. But I did come away from the playoffs thinking to myself, like, man, can you operate at a championship level with a center who is essentially, I don't want to call him a zero because Mitchell Robinson's not a zero. In fact, one of the things that centers are asked to do on offense, he is better at than anybody in the league. And that's like an important thing. But it's basically just that, other than catching lobs, and we are a team that doesn't have anybody who throws good lobs. So it's like, I don't really consider that a huge part of the Mitchell Robinson arsenal. So like, and then you watch Hardenstein out there, and I don't need to go. Anybody listening to this is obviously a diehard Knicks fan. I don't need to go through all the ways that Isaiah Hartenstein changes your life on offense with what he can do, and like, it's just incredible. And that's the part for me. And the defense is more like that. I think about it less in terms of like he's like the next coming of Rudy Gobert, but more like whatever drop off exists is not such that what you're getting on offense, like it's worth, the drop off is worth it, right? If again, to the extent that there is a drop off, and we could have a discussion if you want about whether you think there actually is, but like that's kind of where I'm at. And I had this conversation with Fred Katz the day, like a day or a couple days after Mitch was announced he was going to go down for the year, and that conversation aged like fucking milk left out on a hot July day immediately in the aftermath, because the Knicks went on to continue to have the worst defensive rating in the league for the month of December, and most of that was without Mitch. And I was like, well, now I sound like an asshole. But now we have OG Anunoby instead of RJ Barrett, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, maybe that one piece, if it's the right piece, can make that big of a difference. So I'm pro iHeart. Can we keep him? Yeah, we can keep him, but I think it is going to require them at the very least to open up their checkbook to the fullest extent that they can, which in short means paying him a couple $1 million more per year than the mid-level, unless you think some team is going to use cap space, which is another conversation.
I just want to say that you brought up, you're like, oh, I don't know if you guys, emphasize certain stats over others. The way you talked about field goal percentage and assist percentage was perfect. And it was exactly how we would talk about it. Like, we had a whole spiel earlier this season about Julius Randle's rebounding. And most Knicks fans would look at Julius Randle's individual rebounds over his Knicks career, and we would talk about, and they'd just be like, oh, he's a really good rebounder. But like, actually the best way to tell if somebody's a good rebounder or isn't a good rebounder is how they rebound with you on the court versus how they rebound with you off the court, because that's how you can tell somebody's rebounding impact. And Randle's rebounding impact has been pretty neutral over his Knicks career. So anyways, this is a long way of saying, yeah, like that's how you tell how great Hartenstein's passing is over Mitch's, and is how much more efficient the team is playing with Hardenstein over Mitch and how much more they pass. These are the little subtle ways that maybe don't show up in direct assists, or, this is how you can tell the Hardenstein offense is that big an upgrade. And I just couldn't agree with you more overall, because this defense just can't be real. I'm sorry. Like it is, like EPM is capturing it, but I don't know. Actually, you talk about it all the time. Like, small leaps are believable. RJ Barrett going from 32% to 50% as a 3-point shooter, it just isn't. It wasn't believable. Isaiah Hartenstein going from, he was in the 81st percentile as a defender, or excuse me, he was in he was in the 92nd percentile defensively in LA.
I was gonna say, like, what's the I know he fouled a lot, right? When he was in LA, he was very foul prone. If I recall correctly, and if I'm completely misremembering, please let me know. I thought he was foul prone, but like, just judging from last year, like, he was hurt for the first 2.5 months, or closer to 3 months maybe, and then he felt healthy again. Like, what we're seeing from him defensively this year, I don't feel like I'm watching anything unsustainable. Like, and it also, like, see, this is where I get into trouble, because like I don't defense is always going to be more of an eye test thing for me, and I understand that's not going to be a popular take with a show that is about advanced stats. But like, I watch that dude, and I'm like, I don't need I'm glad the defensive metrics back it up, but like I see him in pick and roll coverage. I know he's doing a good job. I don't think it's as good a job as Mitch, but like I feel like he's doing a great job, and I also feel like what could possibly be unsustainable about it? You know what I mean? Like I'm not making this point clearly. Like we're seeing enough from him on the floor defensively that I'll bring it home. I don't need the stats to tell me that like this is going to be something that continues, unless he just completely stops playing like he's playing, which is like that's not
John,
a thing, right?
If I can just jump in here,
yeah, please.
There's this idea that, like, think about 3-point shooting. Yeah, everybody talks about the volatility of 3-point shooting. You know, like there's only so much you can control. Yes. There's actually more volatility than we understand to other parts of the game as well. Like, It's just hard to capture this level of impact. Certain things have to go your way. It's just, he has caught lightning in a bottle for like 30 games here. And so to your point, you're 100% right. Everything that you just said is 100% right. He can give this level of effort and be this locked in, but just certain things that, and this is kind of a cop-out lame answer, that we can't fully capture with our eyes. There are certain things that we can't fully capture with our eyes that just aren't going to keep going his way.
Oh, totally.
If he maintains this level of defensive impact, he should like win defensive player of the year. So like that, like, and that would be ridiculous to me.
So let me ask a question. When you're saying like things that our eyes can't quantify, like there are things that maybe he is not directly responsible for that are going his way, or
exactly? Exactly. That's perfect. That's perfectly fun.
Totally. So we're on the exact same page. And I guess my point is, and again, I don't know, maybe will make me sound like an idiot. I don't think I care. I care because obviously if they don't go his way as much, because the Knicks are going to be struggling more defensively, they're going to give up more points and lose more games. I care about that. But like in terms of evaluating him, I feel like where I'm getting really, really close to seeing enough from him defensively to feel confident that in the right lineup he could be a good enough defensive center in this scheme under this coach with pretty much this personnel, maybe give or take a little bit, to like lead to sustained winning.
Yeah. So basically, I was gonna jump in real quick because that's actually what I was going to say. It's about the role to me that is different in his career, right? I think that it's this scheme. I think it's with this coach in this rotation, and it all has clicked really well for him. And I agree with you, Geoff, as far as like there being things that are happening that are going his way that we can't necessarily expect to continue to go his way, that he might not be responsible for. That's why we really care about the sample sizes. But, you know, I think at the same time, we look at these other metrics. We look at BPM. He's top 12 in defensive BPM. We look at LeBron. He's like top 20. So consistently, they're rating him out. Like they're saying this is a real thing that's happening, right? And it's a relatively small sample size, but it's a reasonable sample size to draw conclusions with, I think. And I don't think the conclusion is he's going to be the defensive player of the year, but I think the conclusion is he can play at around this level sustainably. Like I think that is something I feel comfortable saying at this stage, and not that, you know, I don't think that the leap is like now he's, you know, Embiid for the rest of his career, but I think he's going to be like he can be a top 15, top 10 center defensively in the league. I think that that's totally possible. And
I think the point John made, like he was in last year, he was in the 81st percentile defensively in defensive EPM. So maybe like if he's actually gone from the 81st to the 90th percentile, I think John's point is just like, okay, who cares that it's not actually the 100th percentile? He's still one of the best. He still made improvements that I'm seeing with my eyes, and I don't see why those can't be real, which I wholeheartedly agree with.
It's just funny. I'm looking up the lineup data. The most used lineup featuring Hardenstein is still with two players who are no longer on the team and one player who he is no longer in a regular lineup with, because it's Barrett, Quickly, Hart, and DiVincenzo, like the original backup five. And you know, they were at 102.3 points per 100. And then you look at him in his second most used lineup, which is the lineup that he was at until they made the trade, which is Randle, Brunson, DiVincenzo, and Barrett, and that had a 127.4 defensive rating. So it's just so funny how you could see like the same center be a part of two like totally different lineups, and obviously have two totally different defensive ratings. I guess my main takeaway is like he's, like that's why is he Rudy Gobert? No, like Rudy Gobert was, I don't know how many players over the last 20 years you could literally put on the floor with almost anybody, and like in regular season games was going to get a certain defensive rating. Like Hardenstein's not that, but he doesn't need to be, especially with I think the way the roster is constructed now. But man, he's awesome. He's really good.
And I think you're highlighting his like how malleable he is. Like the fact that he can be in really good lineups that are good because the offense is crushing. Yeah. And then he can also be in really good lineups where the defense is just good. Like that's awesome. And I think that's being captured by the overall on-off data, because he's now, if you look at all the rotation players who have been Knicks this season, if you count out OG Anunoby's preposterous number right now, he's second on the Knicks behind the obvious Emmanuel Quickley. But I was just gonna say, I think we should also really weigh with a grain of salt any lineups with RJ Barrett in them at this stage, because I think one thing that we found out, at least I feel like I'm finding out, is how deleterious an effect RJ has had on the team with regard to their overall performance. And we see that some in the impact metrics, but I think it's almost like undervalued this year. I think it really was undervalued because his beginning of the season was so good that it makes his metrics look passable. But what we're actually finding out is that recently he just has, reverted to what he had been for most of his career prior.
I know the numbers as well as I do. If you pick literally any lineup combination, could be 2-man lineup, 3-man lineup, 4-man lineup, 5-man lineup from last season with RJ on the floor, and then you look at the exact same thing with RJ off the floor. I sat down and did it one day in like April. Like I think it was before the playoffs, or I was preparing for playoffs or something, and I like looked at them and I'm like, these are fake numbers. These cannot be real numbers, but they were real. And then you're right. We got thrown off the scent for 7 games, and then we kind of were reminded.
Yeah.
I have a friend who built an entire argument for why Emmanuel Quickley is overrated around the fact that his net swing is inflated due to not getting to play with RJ Barrett. And he's like a Wizards fan, and he was like, dude, you don't understand how bad you don't understand how bad RJ is and how good not getting to play with him is, but you're going to understand one day. Listen, God damn it, dude.
We don't want to bash RJ. For great game last night. I was watching the game, 5 3-pointers. Good job by him.
He played great.
That team's flying around for a lot of reasons, but so good job by him.
You can excuse yourself from the conversation if you want, John. Jeff and I on this podcast, we just tell it how the numbers tell it. We tell it how it is. I mean, it is what it is.
Also, I get shit on by both sides of the hive. So like I'm literally on an island. Like I have people in my comments who say I love RJ too much because I try to be bullish on the long term, and like I'm like, oh, like it wasn't gonna work on the Knicks, yada yada. Here's why. And then I have people who like hate RJ or who love RJ, say I'm not high enough on him. So I just can't win with any of them, and I've kind of given up.
That's what being a content creator is all about. Getting everybody to hate you. That should be the goal. Anyway, should we move on to topic number 3?
Yeah. Let's go to number 3, Jeff. You wanna hit that one?
Yeah. So everybody who follows the Knicks is absolutely thrilled with Julius Randle's turnaround, as they should be. Slow start to the season, but he's been amazing since. I thought even like the Sixers game when he didn't shoot well, there were a couple of plays where you were like, there was this one play where he got back in transition off the long miss where it was like, man, I've seen him just pout after that and cost the Knicks a bucket in transition. But I feel like he's really been locked in, and I feel like there was a Fred Katz article recently about how he's changed his style and how he's become more of an inside-out player. He's shooting worse from 3 than he ever has, but he's also shooting fewer 3, so his overall efficiency isn't as high. So my question to you two is the style sustainable? And do we want it to be? Like, for the Knicks to get to the highest level, do they need him to start to pick it up a little bit from three, or is it okay that he's mostly become a brute force on the inside?
That's a great question. Well, Fred had a great article today, actually, about this. He had written about it before, and then he kind of went back to it today. I would fall on the side of he can't abandon taking threes, and I think he knows that, and he said as much. I forget what the exact quote was that Fred had in the article today, but he's like, it's like basically more about like picking like, I don't need to take that many threes. That's the thing. It's like Tibbs or someone in the coaching staff, whatever, went to him before last season and was like, you need to take a lot of threes. Otherwise, we will not have enough spacing to be a sustainable offense. And so he did, and like we saw the results. It was, high volume, good enough percentage, like whatever. But like even the last 3 games, he's been taking more, and I wonder, does that not have to do a little bit with the fact that to me, the way you stop the Knicks, whether it's you're trying to stop Brunson or you're trying to stop Randle, doesn't really matter. You just stop him with length. You stop him with bodies. Like you that's what Minnesota does. That's what I feel like. Trying to think of another, like even like Milwaukee. Obviously, their perimeter defense is ass, but they do have like Giannis and like Brook on the interior to the extent that those guys are like, yeah. Middleton. That was the other guy I was thinking of. Wait, there was another team. Even Philly. Like, he struggled against Philly. So, and what did Philly do? Like, Philly had Oubre essentially at the 2, unless you want to consider Batum the 2 in that lineup. Either way, both of those guys are kind of like long arm, like bigger for their position. Like, both of those guys could conceivably be a 4 today, and they were the starting wings with obviously Harris at the 4. And so I think he knows he still needs to shoot threes. But then we get into like, all right, well, what is Randle's process? When is he shooting those threes? When is he not shooting those threes? When is he using the threat of the 3 to try to drive, or like vice versa? Like, and then we get into Randle's process, which is a interesting conversation. I don't know. I don't think he should abandon threes. I'll just leave it at that, and then we can someone else talk.
Yeah, I think that's all right. As far as the Philly thing, to me, I felt like he was also much more passive. Like, I don't know if it's 100% what Philly did to stop him as opposed to like, right. He seemed like he played differently to me. But that's an eye test thing. It definitely can't quantify that. As far as the threes, like Randle has anybody had as crazy a career as far as like shot selection and shot diet as Julius Randle? He must be number 1 in as far as players that I can remember. Like, this guy went from shooting essentially no threes to like a ton of threes to like a few threes to essentially down to like a medium amount. It's really insane. Like, I'm looking at his seasons in 2018 and 2019 with the Lakers and the Pelicans. He took 11 rim attempts per 75 possessions with the Lakers in 2018, and 10 rim attempts per 75 possessions in 2019 with the Pelicans. He's down to 7.5 this season. The last season he was at 5.5. Like, he's all over the place. He's now, I think, to me, playing like a hybrid of the way that he played with the Pelicans and the way that he's played in New York, which has been a lot more 3 heavy. Last year he had 8.5 3-point attempts per 75 possessions, which was his career high by far. It's like not even close. It almost feels like it belongs to a different player's trajectory. So he's just playing in this weird hybrid middle style. I think Randle can be successful at all of it, is my personal opinion, because he has been. He's been successful without threes. He's been successful with threes. He's been successful shooting a bunch of mid-range shots. Like, he's been successful at anything he's done. It's just about what really works most for this team, for this Knicks team, for the unit that he has surrounding him. And I think for the squad that we have, I mean, with OG, I think the pressure is off of him a little bit more with the threes, but I think he needs to space the court. And everybody who knows me knows I care. My number one priority in the world is spacing and is being able to shoot threes, to make the game easier for everyone else on the court. And so I don't think he can abandon threes. I think it's something he's going to have to continue to work at, but I don't think his shot is completely shot, so to speak. And his free throw percentage is consistent. He has dropped off of late. He was shooting really well earlier in the season, but I think he can get it back. But I just want to say, I think it's incredible that Randle's been able to do what he's done in all of these different ways. I think there's nobody like him in that regard.
How much does the acquisition of OG and the potential for Tibbs against certain teams? I don't think it's reasonable to expect Tibbs to do it against all teams, but the potential for Tibbs to be like, okay, Randle, you're playing as strong and as you're clearly an interior presence right now. Maybe with OG and Hart and Grimes and DiVincenzo, all these bigger wings that the Knicks now have, maybe for against certain teams, we can go 8 minutes a night when Hardenstein's not on the court with Randle at the 5. How much does that alter the potential equation in terms of Randle's 3-point shooting? Because if Randle's getting those minutes, I don't think in those minutes him shooting threes matters at all, really. Like, yeah, it's nice to have the threat of spacing, but I think those offenses will be good whether Randle's firing from 3 or not.
It's so interesting because we were talking before. It goes back to the first thing about Duce, right? And the non-Brunson minutes. Like, to me, and Tibbs has gone on the record, I don't know if he said it in as many words, but he has said things on the record that intimate that the only time he's ever going to go with small, like that level of small ball, is if he's down by a lot and he feels like he needs to use it to get back in the game, which that's a Tibbs thing. We don't have to go into it, but like,
it's also really smart, by the way. If you're down a lot, you want to increase the variance.
Yeah.
So like there is logic behind that.
But is that the only time you should be using it? I think.
That's fair.
Which is whatever. But it is an interesting notion that during non-Brunson minutes, maybe that's the solution, right? Is Randle I know this is not what the topic was. It was about Randle's 3-point shooting, but so let's just say Randle at the 5, OG at the 4 can shoot, Josh Hart at the 3. Nobody's going to guard him in the playoffs. Pick. And then, but then is McBride not on the floor? Because then if you have DiVincenzo and Grimes out there, is that, so I guess DiVincenzo is getting you into your defense, getting you into your offense. I mean,
and
that
Hart,
gives you
Tibbs trusts Hart.
Tibbs, yes, he does, and Hart can do things. He could dribble a basketball. I don't know. I'm just like throwing shit against the wall. I don't. It's interesting to me though. But yeah, to your point, he wouldn't necessarily need to shoot threes in those alignments, but no, I think he needs to pick his spots. And here's the other thing: is like, it's so funny now. A Randle made 3 after he made 1 billion of them last season. Like, a Randle made 3 feels like a big deal again. Like, it's like an extra jolt of energy, which has nothing to do with anything, but I want to point that out.
In the We Here season, like when he would make it took me all the way until the end of the season for when Randle would put up a 3 for me to be like, that's probably good. That feeling you get when like a good shooter puts up a 3, like the one that you get with DiVincenzo right now, where it's like every time he puts one up, you're assuming it's cash. Like, it took me until the end of the season to really be like, I guess when Randle shoots, like, he's gonna make them. I don't know. Like, but now it is like, whew, he made one. This is incredible. So it's just crazy how that feeling changes. So I don't know, substantially from season to season with a guy like Randle who can either run hot or cold.
Yeah, I mean, my not hot take is like same was true last year. Same is true 2 years before that. The Knicks will go as far in the playoffs as Randle's play set. Like if he's the best version of himself, like they could go to Eastern Conference Finals. It wouldn't shock me in the least. If he's the best version of himself, like we've seen for 15, 20 games this year.
I'm fully on board with that take and we brought up the Sixers game. I know tons of Knicks fans have been there way earlier, and I watched the playoffs last season too, so I was there for the playoffs too, obviously. That Sixers game was like one of the first times watching Jaylen Brunson where I was just like, okay, so his production is just guaranteed. Like, it's just like I know there's game to game shot variance, But Nicholas Batum played amazing defense that game. Like,
Yeah.
he's long, he's tall, he's smart, and it just didn't matter. It was just like Jaylen Brunson got to his spots. And so I finally am just like, okay, he's just going to get to his spots against anyone. And I guess that should have clicked for me when RJ Barrett was 1 pass away and Josh Hart was 2 passes away against Miami. And Brunson was still putting up 40, like efficient 40. Like, yeah. I guess I'm slow to the, and, you know, I'm such a macro thinker that I can't help but view Brunson, the totality of Brunson. I'm just never going to be one of those people who's like, the Knicks are really good and Brunson's the Knicks' best player, MVP. You know, like, that's just, I can't, I'm never going to think like that. I care too much about overall impact, and Brunson's defense for me is just always going to be there. I get and appreciate Knicks fans. Yeah, right. And I get and appreciate Knicks fans who are like, who love the grit and like, I love Brunson for my own reasons. I'm just saying that was the first time that I was like, okay, his offense is so good that, like, if they just, and to your point, if Julius Randle can just be that supporting piece, that the Knicks can go to the Eastern Conference Finals. They can make the finals. Like,
I mean, he needs to continue being ridiculous in the short mid range. That was the other statistic I was looking up. He's a third of his shots are coming from the short mid range, and they should, because he's been, since the first 2 weeks of the season, he's hitting like everything from there. Like, I love that, and that's, to me, that's one thing that probably will never change to some extent, is that you need to be able to hit that shot in the playoffs. And he's hit it a lot. So as long as they could continue to figure out how to get him those shots, and he could figure out how to give himself those shots and hits them, like, that's a good thing. Yeah.
And can I just say, for a guy who's struggling like Randle, or not, he's not struggling now, but when he struggled historically in the playoffs, there is more merit to bring back up the going small thing. If you think that Randle in small lineups has a better chance of getting to those spots against playoff defenses that are set in the half court, there is merit to maybe losing other games in the macro, because, like, okay, we're going to get our second best player in a rhythm that's going to have long-term gains. So I do think there is intangible merit there, or maybe intangible is the wrong word, but
well, no, and I think that'll be matchup dependent too in the playoffs, right? It's like, an OG guard. Does Tibbs feel confident having OG guard the 5, 1, and then 2? Does he feel comfortable enough on the boards? And that's a big area that I'm curious to see continue, or how it continues. Is OG, not necessarily his individual rebounding, like we talked about rebounding before, and like impact of team rebounding, or individual rebounding, impact on team rebounding, and so on and so forth. But, like, because he's never been a great rebounder, but they seem to be rebounding the hell out of the ball since he came aboard. So something worth continuing to monitor.
Yeah, we are gonna wrap this one. We really appreciate you coming on, John. This was a lot of fun talking about these few topics. I just want to say again, thank you so much for joining us. And not only do you spend upwards of 40 hours on a microphone, but
whatever, too many.
You got a family, a day job, you're everywhere. And to come spend some time with us on, Hot Hand Theories, it's really a solid, and it really means a lot. We really appreciate it. Anything you want to say, Geoff, before we wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to echo the thoughts I opened the show with. You're one of the good ones. You're one of the great ones on Knicks Twitter, and, like, I certainly wouldn't have the platform I do if it wasn't for you. So thanks for giving us your time and helping us out.
It truly, the least I could do. You guys are doing something that, it's funny. It's like we're in 2024 now, and, like, everybody and their daughter has a podcast, and but yet you're filling a space that was not being filled, and it's like you're doing it well, and it just goes to show that, like, there's a good, fun, engaging, interesting, entertaining way to do anything if you care about it, and you, like, and you're good at it, which you guys are. But yeah, no, thanks for the kind words. It's been quite a journey. Looking forward to continuing it. But yeah, make sure, here's my plug. Give these guys a nice 5-star rating and review if you're listening to this. That would be my ask.
Yeah, listen to John. Thanks. That would mean a lot to us. And obviously, if you know us, you know Knicks Film School, so you'll catch John on all the various things we have going on over there at KFS. And thanks a lot. Appreciate it, guys.